is Floyd. I'm the Vice President of Communications and Digital at BAE Systems, which is a defense contractor. Before that, I was head of public affairs at the Pentagon, where I first really started pushing social media in the U.S. government.
My name is Lynettes Gomez. I work at CA Technologies. For those of you that don't know what CA Technologies is, it's one of the largest software developers in the world, and follow us at CA Inc. I'm going to do a shameless plug. And I've been at CA for almost 8 years now in various roles, everywhere from international field marketing to campaigns to digital strategy, web strategy, and in the last couple of years, social media. Before that, I was working in different organizations, both from international trade and business development standpoint.
So I think it'd be useful to kick off this discussion with some of the challenges of B2B marketing and social media. Most of what we hear about the kind of successes and all the kind of news and exciting stuff is often very, very consumer focused. So coming into that world from a pure B2B space, what are some of the challenges and difficulties that you face?
Thank you. Excuse me. Well, so we were having a conversation just prior to coming up here, and I find the same thing with most marketers in the B2B space. The challenge working with the social media platforms or the platforms that are springing up, in this space, is that there are strategies available for B2C, and when you talk about B2B, and sometimes really it's just taking a strategy and molding it a little bit to B2B. So sometimes it doesn't work, but many times it does. But when you talk to the marketing teams that are in place for, and it can be the marketing team for Google, LinkedIn, some of the new tools like Irradiant 6, etc. So it's really not small versus big, because we've all heard of those names. It's really a matter of when you talk to them about what is the B2B strategy, there really is no strategy available. So I find that for myself, me and the people that I work with, we're creating that strategy, and we're going to them and saying, this is how we're using your tool, and this is how we want to continue to use it, and we want to get some ideas from you. And what we're usually doing is explaining to them, creating it, and we're not getting what you would traditionally get from traditional marketing teams in, say, online publications, or even if you were in a B2C space. So the challenge is that we find ourselves creating that for them, as opposed to them coming to us with something set in stone. Now, once you get together, you can really make something work because there's some value there. But I find that we are always creating things that are somewhat new to these individuals.
At BAE, we're a defense contractor. We have mainly one customer, the U.S. government, in my case. And we work with other businesses, but often as competitors or as work together on a team. And so our B2B communication with social media is often on a third party's platform. So we won't talk directly to each other. We'll talk on Twitter or on Facebook. Maybe not our Facebook site though, someone else's Facebook site, or on blogs where a conversation is taking place, and we either point to that conversation almost in essence indirect communication. If we are trying to send a message to another business, we have to do it really indirectly because of the relationships, fairly complicated relationships we have with other businesses. And there's also, since the government's our customer, we have to be careful what we say and where we say it and how we say it, etc. So there are limitations on what we can do. But for a communicator, I actually like that challenge as opposed to a campaign. A social media campaign where you know what your message is, you know where your audience is, and you just kind of hammer that kind of that traditional communication or marketing, kind of hammer that home. This is much more, I think, creative, and you have to be much more indirect in your communication. So therefore, I think more fun, but also much more challenging.
Similar to what Jeannine's talking about, I've experienced myself, and many of you probably in the room, where you start working with different vendors, the experts, and when you're working in a large enterprise, a lot of times, I personally find, we have many different business organizations within the organization, right? And for different reasons, you might do some outreach, whether it's your goal is awareness, whether your goal is engagement, whether your goal is product support, which might be under the company umbrella, but many times it's under the actual business organization or the customer solution area. And we find many times a lot of the tools out there, or the experts out there, don't really understand sort of the complexity behind some of the enterprise brands in B2B. And so, being able to sort of get your arms around all of the outreach we might have through different accounts, being able to integrate enterprise business tools like a LinkedIn, or for us, because we're technology, Google Plus is really important. Finding those kind of experts that are sort of leading that trend and integrating that end to end, whether it's monitoring or management of content or measuring against just an overall campaign is not easy. A lot of times I find, similar to Jeannine, that you're asking the questions that they seem kind of surprised you're even asking. So, and then and it's not because we're rocket scientists. I just think it's sort of new and sort of on the other side, from a business standpoint, Bryce was talking about government being his biggest customer, his main customer, only customer. We have a similar sort of dynamic where a large part of our business is U.S. government. Homeland Defense, financial services, organizations that have very strict compliance in what they're able to share and how they use our technologies to power their business. So those are some areas there.
So how have you overcome those? What are some of the successful strategies that you guys have come up with, that you guys have seen and look up to?
After Martini, I find myself many times, I've actually worked with our own IT department to say, how can we start building some of this on our own, right? How can we, take the expertise where it makes sense, but how can we home grow it on our own? So, and many of you might have lived this, where you have a particular program. Let's say your program's around awareness. How do you take that from beginning to end, from figuring out how your audience is going to consume that information, whether it's through social, through mobile, ultimately on your company site, or third-party sites you're syndicating that content to. It's sort of, how do you take that and publish that out to different social media channels, and then be able to measure against that at the end, and then also be able to track possibly buzz around that type of content you're hoping they're excited about, right? And so, taking that end to end, I have yet to find a tool that can do that. I know how I can envision it. I know what would need to happen, but it's sort of piecework out there today. What's that?
So what I can say is that you need to educate yourself. So if you're leading this or working with a team, and you're looking to put together a strong marketing plan, and it's all, the key word is integration. So social on its own is lacking. Traditional on its own is absolutely lacking. They really need to be together. And so you can't do what many people used to do in the past, is bring in a consultant. And there are some excellent ones out there, but you won't know that if you're not educated. So I've walked into the room with consultants that someone else has hired and sat down and knew in 10 minutes that they have no idea, or they're just putting a tagline on their title because it's part of what you need to do as a consultant these days in the digital space. So you have to educate yourself to pick the right people. There are some great people out there. You just need to know that. And the way that we do that is I have a Forrester license, so I'm big on Forrester, and I'm big on those type of research firms that do the studies with real businesses like all of us work for and with. So that's important. One of the books that till this day, I know it was written in 2008, but Groundswell, if you have not read that book, it's written by a couple of Forrester analysts. There's no better holistic book to educate yourself on all the possibilities around social media. So you do things like that, you read articles, you Google things, you go online, you read blogs about people just like yourselves that have the same issues. So when you sit down with these individuals and these companies and you're talking about what your strategy needs to be, you know from your own body of experience plus what you've learned to be able to talk to them about what you're looking for. And so you'll know when they say to you, this is what I envision, whether it's right for you, because they don't know your company like you know your company. And so they will come up with a strategy, and there are many horror stories out there, go-to-market strategies that were totally dependent upon what a consultant suggested that are a disaster. And they're a disaster because they don't know your company. So education is the way that you're going to get over that and be able to create a strategy that, especially if you're in the B2B space, that will work for your company.
So I think people have a good idea of kind of what a big B2C social media marketing campaign looks like. You get a big Facebook page, you post loads of viral videos, you set up a community website. Does it look the same for B2B? Or what does a successful B2B social media marketing strategy look like? What are some of the leading kind of great examples that you've seen of companies really doing this well?
All right. So looking, it's funny because the company I was thinking of is actually here today, and that's Amex. You've probably seen their integrated campaign around the open forum. And what really strikes me in what they do that's really unique and sort of altruistic, and what they call, I think, reciprocal altruism, I think is what they're calling it. But what they're doing is they're opening up this forum for their small and medium-sized businesses, really mostly their small businesses, their clients, and they're sharing information that's going to help those businesses be more successful. And a good majority of that content has nothing to do with selling Amex services or getting them to use their card more. It's helping them empower their business to grow and be successful. And with no other objective, their ROI has nothing to do with a direct uplift to their Amex brand. Of course, as a result, they're getting that. But that to me is something that's really compelling and really interesting.
I guess at BAE, it's actually a little more complicated because even the Amex one, which I like as well, is almost like a B2C, but you just did B2B. They found their audience. So for us, it's difficult because we kind of have to have this conversation. If I'm trying to talk to that business, I actually can't. So I look like I'm talking over here, but I'm really, and I hope they're listening. And so what we have to do, to go back to actually what Jeannine said, is lots of education and research. No one knows these issues like we do. And when I say we, though, I don't mean me. I'm just a communications guy. Who put digital, digital, because, like you said, that's what everyone has to have. I'm a communications guy. What I need to do is remember what I learned right when I started doing communications, which is, what is it that you're trying to say? Who needs to hear it? Where are those people? Where do they get their information? Who do they listen to? And then who's your speaker? Because that can often affect how they listen to you. And then the last one, which communications people, at least in the past, even now, can always suck at, is measuring it. Did it work? And do you have any kind of data to back it up? In other words, the science. And where I work, it's all engineers. They want lots of the science, lots of the measurement, and they don't really like the art, which is the stuff that comes before that because they don't understand it. And I don't actually blame them. And so what we do is we have to go out to our business and find people who are experts. And what's funny is when we started doing that, we found out they were actually already out there. They were already on the blogs. They were already on Twitter or Facebook. They were already doing stuff. And our other businesses that we wanted to talk to were often already following them. In other words, it was already happening. We just didn't know it. And so when we find those people, let's just find people doing good and doing the right thing. For us, it was about recognizing that they were doing what they need to be doing. And they actually weren't doing it from work. They weren't hiding who they were, but they weren't doing it from the company's social media site or any of Twitter or Facebook, or often it was LinkedIn, but more often than not it was their own Twitter or Facebook site where those conversations were happening, or depending on the issue, on a blog, of which there are a zillion.